Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat. Coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels, including back on TikTok. What's up, TikTok? I missed you. I know. I'm back by popular demand. Don't screw it up, people. Hope you're all doing well out there. As I indicated here in the old title of this year's stream, the safety position for the Green Bay Packers is definitely at a crossroads. You can't look at what they put on the field in 2022 throughout the entirety of the season and say anything other than improved play required. There's no doubt that guys like Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage and really the entire room took a pretty significant step back. This is obviously from scrimmage. I think Ennis Gaines and company did some nice things on special teams. Gaines actually got on the field there late towards the end of the season, some of their dime stuff. Rudy Ford clearly came in and made a difference, especially in that Cowboys game right off the bat, being inserted into the lineup and really kind of hitting the ground running, so to speak. But overall, you can't look at the safety position and think anything other than they need improvements. Now, I know contractually they're in an interesting situation because of where Adrian Amos is heading into free agency, essentially. He's got a number of kind of void years left in his deal for cap purposes, but he is going to be a free agent. Darnell Savage, as we all know, the fifth-year option was picked up, so he is under contract for next year, a fully guaranteed contract due to the terms of the fifth-year option, which is got to be a decision Brian and company would like to have back. I think you saw him take a step back that first year in Barry's scheme comparative to where he was under Pettin, but you thought hopefully year under his belt, he'd hit the ground running and kind of start ascending in that kind of free safety role that they utilize him in on occasion. And anything other than that happened. I don't think it's a mystery when he did finally start seeing the field again after being basically benched after the Tennessee game, that when they used him in that nickel role near the line of scrimmage, he was much better. I'm not sitting here telling you he was outstanding or he was, lights out or anything like that. But clearly that is where he is best utilized. Now, the problem there, obviously, is that it's your safety playing nickel. And you still need two guys on the back end for most coverages and or formations. But, like I said, Amos set to walk, and I think he joins a pretty strong safety group in free agency. The issue for the Packers, of course, as most issues are this offseason, is the salary cap, trying to fit these guys in. I do not doubt for a moment that if there is a guy that, Brian Gutekunst and his pro personnel people have, singled out or said, this is a guy we can definitely kind of utilize and improve with, etc., Russ Ball can make it work. But that it'll take some moving around and probably, backloading another contract and kicking more cans, different cans at this point, but cans down the street. And that with Joe Barry's scheme, traditionally, a lot of looks are similar pre-snap. And then post-snap is when things kind of materialize and or adjustments get made. We've heard Rodgers talk about that a couple times. It's got to be someone who you would hope is versed in the scheme. The other kind of flip side of that is if they don't want to spend those free agency dollars, you're going to go and, yes, probably draft another safety. Packers continuing to swing in the draft for this. I'm not necessarily saying they'd take one at 15, but probably either day one or day two. I would look for them to, if the board falls the right way, to try to restock the position. It's definitely in flux, and there are a lot of moving parts here. I'm just, of a mind that you can't look at 2022 and say anything other than they have got to improve across the board in every area. I mean, and the sad part for me is Amos was one of the most underappreciated talents in the league for the last several years. And then heading into the season where traditionally guys really pick it up, when they're set to be a free agent, their final kind of year on a contract, he really fell off the cliff, man. I love Adrian as a player. I love what he's done since coming on board in free agency, back when, Brian made that first splash. And I think like I said, I think he's been greatly underappreciated league-wide for the job he's done in Green Bay in both schemes. But, man, that's what makes it hurt watching his play last year, because it was nowhere near up to the standard that he had set all the other years he's played in Green Bay. The one glimpse you got of the old Adrian was that Vikings game in Lambeau. But outside of that, it was I would color it as a disappointment from Amos in 2022. And look, I hope he's back. I really do. I think, for everything that was going on the defensive side of the ball, Adrian can still contribute and still help this defense improve. But he's got to play better than he did in 2022. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here. I don't think anybody would dispute that. But yeah, like I said, the position, great amount of flux. We'll see how Brian and company attack it this offseason. Hello to everybody in the comment section. So good to see everyone hanging out. Big B is here. What's up, Big B? Good to see you, brother. 2 days in a row. As the Pet Shop Boys once famously said, what have I done to deserve this? Thanks, buddy. Irving, so good to see you. Thanks for the super sticker. Greatly appreciated. What else we got here, folks? What else we got? Gary's here. What's up, Gary? Travis, thank you for the super chat. Rodgers said on McAfee that the media made him out to be a villain because of his COVID vaccine status. Do you agree? This feels like a trap. I think the media piles on. I think the media does a good job of framing people in a negative light. I think Aaron's brought a lot of this on himself, though. And look, I said it in the video I made back last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, with the brouhaha coming off of the immunized comment and blah, blah, blah. I said he's free to make his own choices. Absolutely 1,000%. Don't begrudge him for anything he chooses to do with his body, and as a professional athlete, especially, that is his domain, and whatever choice he wants to make, that's 100% his business, and I have no problem with it. How he chooses to handle public questioning about it, that's up to him as well. And you can't look at his appearances on McAfee going throughout that entire kind of process as anything other than a mini disaster. It would have been very easy for him not to rise to that bait. But he felt he needed to answer the critics, quote unquote. Now, what critics are there? I mean, he was a little bit more direct about certain things, like the COVID toe article, which is still wild to me. Which, to his point, it was grossly irresponsible. And I had no problem with him going after the Wall Street Journal for that. Like, that's a direct kind of response, right? I get that. But to, continuously call out the quote woke mob or cancel culture or whatever, man, you're just asking to be labeled as the villain. I mean, all of those things can be talked about in another forum. Maybe I'll come up with some other venue where I can talk about shit that's not Packers related. But yeah, I think the media definitely goes overboard or has gone overboard on Rodgers. But like I said, I think he's also, done some of this to himself. No question about it. Vex, thanks for the super chat. I heard Mike Wall refer to pass-catching tight ends as glorified slot guys, I think, receivers. Why then are pass-catching tight ends so good then? Because they can dictate coverages and personnel decisions by defensive coordinators. And if you can get good matchups, especially with these athletes that the NFL features today, you can really make hay. Because if you've got a team that can run the ball, say like the Eagles or the 49ers, then yes, as a defensive coordinator, you're caught. You have to try and stop that run game. And when you see a tight end in that huddle, you think, okay, well, yeah, they can catch passes, but they could also be kind of firing off the ball and trying to run, counter or whatever, or even zone. So I've got to be ready for that. And then when you break the huddle as an offense and you split this tight end into the slot or even outside on occasion, well, now you're in a bind because that guy can catch passes. He can run routes. And so do you put a corner on him? Fine. But then all of a sudden there's a toss play to that side and your tight end is absolutely burying your corner on the perimeter and you're off to the races. So I think, yeah, it's not, I don't know if some of the guys maybe glorified slot. Okay, fine. If you need to categorize them that way, I understand it. I think some of them are better than others when it comes to, maybe starting in the slot and then motioning inline and being a devastating blocking tight end as well. I mean, Kittle, prior to his injuries and even now he's gotten back to it. I mean, he is one of the guys you just love to watch block because he will bury dudes. I mean, it doesn't matter what position. He will absolutely bury guys. So, yeah, as a defensive coordinator, it presents a major issue, a major challenge. So, yeah, that's one of the key pieces, and it's something that the Packers really haven't had since Jermichael Finley. They've had guys who can catch, they've had guys who can block, but they haven't had that guy. And Jermichael was that guy, especially towards the end before he got hurt. He could do it all. I remember TJ Lang posting a kind of cut up of some of Jermichael's blocks coming off in line and getting out into routes, and he would just pulverize dudes. Yeah, and the position in this day and age, especially with the rules set up the way they are in the passing game, can be a major difference maker. No question about it. Cheeto, thanks for the super chat, man. We ever dictate the type of cheese and cheesehead? Always dictating, baby. Always dictating. Whatever cheese you want, man. Any cheese. Any cheese you want. I appreciate that we rely on Lazard for blocking, but it's not the move. What's up, TikTok? I'm assuming this is about free agency and allowing him to walk. I mean, you got to think he's probably hell bent on getting to free agency, and I don't think the Packers are going to make any kind of offer to dissuade him from that. I do think they'll probably talk to him and say, look, you get to free agency, and if you don't find the offer that you think you're deserving, or you don't find something you like, come on back, and we'll take you back on a somewhat team-friendly deal. But yeah, I think Lazard is probably more valuable to the Packers than any other team in the league, just because of everything he does, the way he fits into the offense that Matt runs. I don't doubt for a moment they'd like to have him back, but given their cap situation, and there are teams out there, most notably, of course, the Chicago Bears with over $100 million worth of cap space and an offensive coordinator who he's very familiar with, and Luke Getsy. I'd be very, very surprised if the Packers tried to retain him seriously. Bucky throwing it down. Bucky has news for you all. Rodgers ain't getting traded. If anything, Love is. Yes, because anytime you can sink 3 years worth of development into a first-round pick, and you can just turn around and toss him aside in favor of a 39, soon-to-be 40-year-old quarterback at the end of his career, you got to do it. I don't know if you can tell where I stand on that one. Breaking news, Mel Kiper mock draft 1.0 on ESPN. Oh, Lord, mock draft season. I will say, though, I mean, we got Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft out there, his first one. We got Mel's first mock draft out there. It's that season, baby. And speaking of which, I just booked my travel for the Combine, the end of February, first week of March. So if you're in the Indianapolis area, be on the lookout for information about a Cheesehead TV meetup. We had one last year. It was a lot of fun. We'll be having one again this year. So be on the lookout because it's going to be a good time. One of those nights. I don't know what night yet, but we'll be there all week. I'll be there all week. Billy Schmid, who I co-host Beer and Ball with, he'll be there for iHeartRadio. So we'll undoubtedly be doing content together. It's going to be a ball. Be on the lookout. Can't wait. And by that point, maybe I'll have even watched a few college players to know what the hell is going on. Menace, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat. Instead of saying "Go Pack Go," our new mantra for the next season should be salary cap restrictions, as we will hear that more and more in 23 through 25. Menace, why you got to bring me down, man? I'm sitting here chatting. I'm drinking an old fashioned. I'm talking to TikTok, and you got to be up in here like getting me all depressed. I don't appreciate it, man. That ain't cool. That ain't cool, dude. That ain't cool. What else we got? Vex, what's up, man? Nagler's book /TV /music, etc. club. Yes, please. Well, nobody wants that, man. Nobody needs a Nagler book club. I mean, it would just be like J.R.R. Tolkien and, noir mystery novels. And that'd be about it. Oh, and maybe some Bukowski. Throw it in. Charles, not Peter. What else we got, folks? Johnny, how you doing, man? Thanks for the super chat. I would trade the 3 years developing Savage for a 60-year-old Chuck Cecil, though. I mean, fair point, dude. Fair point. I have no argument. Absolutely not. Pogs is here. What's up, Pogs? How you doing, man? And Soder's here. Look, the whole gang's all here. I love it. I absolutely love it. And Brandy's here. Of course, Brandy's here. Oh, and here's what makes TikTok makes TikTok a good time. Love your content, but I'm a diehard Lions fan. Is Packers Nation concerned about the Lions come up? Not the way they probably should be. And thanks for saying you love the content. Greatly appreciate it. I don't think Packers fans understand how good the Lions looked the second half of this season. Probably because we were all kind of wrapped up in our own bullshit and how bad the Packers looked for so much of the season. But yeah, the Lions figured it out this year, big time. And I suspect they're only going to get better. I think Campbell's building something pretty damn good. Now, nothing's a guarantee from year to year, obviously, and sustained success is hard. But, I mean, they have taken it to the Packers the last, 3 times they played them. And it's very clear the Lions don't fear Green Bay anymore. There's no doubt about that. So I don't think Packers fans are worried, per se, just because we have no idea what the team is going to look like next year. We got to wait and find out what the hell Aaron Rodgers is going to do. We don't want bandwidth to worry about the freaking Lions. But I will say, they look damn good the second half of the season. No doubt about it. Tyler, thanks for the super chat. My 19-month-old holds favorite phrase is "Go Pack Go." Well, Tyler, clearly they carry the G. I mean, that is obvious. I'd love to see Belichick get Aaron. That would be amazing. I mean, I would be very, very surprised if the Patriots made that kind of move, but I've been surprised before. What do you think the weakest position group was for the Packers this year? Safety? I don't know, Thirsty Beach, if I'd go entirely on safety. I think safety was a weak spot. There's no doubt about that. But it's funny, it's crazy because we spent all last offseason talking about how, they finally got help for Kenny Clark. And yet, through much of the year, that help did not play probably up to the standard or the expectation that we had. And I think they got to look at a defensive line early in this draft. And I know it feels weird to say that after everything I just talked about. Everything we said last summer was they finally got Kenny help. Well, I know they took a D lineman in the first round last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they took another one this year. Obviously, they will be counting on development from Wyatt. There's zero question about that. But you have got to get better up front. You have got to do it, especially if you're going to play so much with, the two-man line looks that they love to run, all that nickel. You got to be able to control those gaps up front way better than they did this season. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, and I would not be unhappy about it. The other thing is I don't think it's a weak position. I think it's actually a position of strength, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they use that first-round pick on an offensive lineman. They've obviously drafted a ton of offensive linemen over the last 2 years, but I still think, given how their season ended and the struggles they had, somewhat up and down throughout the season, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Games won up front. We all know this. But you got to make investments to improve there. Carl, thanks for the super chat. Have any Packers defensive players come out in support of Joe Barry? No, but I haven't heard any Packers players grumbling about Joe Barry either. Plus, the Packers haven't made anything official. They haven't announced the return of the crew or whatever. Every year they'll have a press release that'll say, Matt LaFleur makes adjustments to his staff or, hires maybe an assistant, etc. Once all that is done, and that will happen, but, once that's completely finalized, in other words, Jerry Gray, he's at the end of his contract and is taking interviews. Maybe he's back, maybe he's not. But once all of that is tied up, the Packers will announce it. And then it'll be interesting. Once that happens, does radio silence from the defensive players mean a whole lot? I don't think so. But who knows? We'll see. Maybe there will be someone brave enough to grumble about it on social media. And that's the other thing. It's like, what do they get out of it if they say yes or no or give support or don't? All you're asking for is headaches. So I think most of the guys will steer clear of that. What else we got? Best game of the year versus the Vikings playing press coverage. I mean, yeah, they were definitely more aggressive. We saw that. A lot more physical with Justin Jefferson. But it's not like they pressed every down. I mean, this narrative forming that, they finally got up and pressed. Well, they did that throughout the year during other games. but it was very noticeable against the Vikings, especially when you compare it to the way they played that Week 1 game. Um, but it wasn't this complete departure. Obviously, yes, Jair was much more physical and followed Jefferson early on. That was noticeably different. But you go back and watch the Washington game, go back. There's a few games where, Jair followed the number one and he was pretty physical up front. But yes, will we like to see more of that? 1,000,000,000%. Why don't we run a 4-3? It's a good question. Mostly because that's, hasn't been their personnel and it's not the scheme that Matt wanted when he hired Barry. Everybody's now running this Fangio style thing where you've got, multiple fronts and you can technically get into a 4-3, but those outside backers, the reason Pettin liked them big and strong is because they kind of served as de facto defensive ends where you could still set an edge and then pass rush when you needed it, blah, blah, blah. And that's why you've got guys like Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary, guys who are big and hulking and can be really physical on the outside. But yeah, it is still a 3-4 based system. And that's the Fangio style that's been in vogue now for the last number of years. The Packers model is very much in line with what Staley did when he was, defensive coordinator. They haven't been as successful with it. And the thing that's crazy to me is, like, if you go back and watch the last game, the last 2 years, the defense played well enough to win both of those games. I just want that defense that we saw at the end of the year to show up week 1. I don't know what needs to happen to make that a reality, but boy, howdy, does it need to happen. No question. Bucky, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat. We have to find a remedy for poor line play in January. You ain't lying. I mean, you can kind of draw a straight line through their last 3 losses, their last games of the last 3 years, and point to poor line play. To whether it's the NFC Championship game against Tampa, whether it's just getting run over by the front from the 49ers, or the Lions, and that's the most concerning one because the Lions couldn't stop a nosebleed in the running game for much of the season and then come into Lambeau and completely shut the Packers down. Now, the Packers really didn't stick with it, which will forever bug me, but it's hard to stick with it when you're not getting much out of it. The Packers didn't really change their approach much. But yeah, the offensive line got completely manhandled, both in the running game and in pass protection. It's not a great trend. And you're right. Something has to be done. I think a big part of it is to kind of add to it, as I was saying before. Soder, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat. Odds of Tom to center and Myers to guard. I don't think it's an impossible development. I think, I am going to be fascinated to see where they put Tom and or have him compete in training camp next year. I think he's played center early on in his college career. He hasn't done a lot of it as of late, but they did utilize him and run him there a bit in camp. So they clearly see the potential there. I think that, what's crazy is that I wouldn't be surprised if, Jenkins is back at left guard, Tom wins the center battle, and then, Runyon beats out Myers at right guard, and then Myers is on the bench. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. It's unfortunate because he was a day 2 pick, but man, you got to get better. You're getting better or you're getting worse. And Myers was way too inconsistent this year, as I know you know. Vex, thanks for the super chat. I watched Jordan Love throws from 2022, and they are out on time, accurate, not at receiver's feet, in stride. 12 doesn't do that much anymore. Yeah, I talked about this the other day. I just urge caution when looking at that cut up. And look, shout out to Justice for putting it out there. Really appreciate it. But you got to remember game situation in most of those throws. The defense is playing a very specific style in a lot of those games because he's in there often in mop-up duty in games that are out of hand. And they're not letting him complete passes, but they are running not even basic stuff, but they're running stuff to keep everything in front of them. They're not pressuring very much. It's a very different animal than if you're the starter, you're taking the first snap of the game and you're playing going the entire way, But that said, to your point, he looks good. Definitely decisive. Knows where to go with the ball. Knows how to operate the offense. As I said yesterday, he's he's ready to play. He's ready to play. Will the Packers allow him to play? We'll see. All right, buddy. I'm going to have to get going. I can't thank you enough for hanging out, talking Packers each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Please do me a monster favor and hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and then tell your friends and tell your family, Cheesehead TV. We are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. Go Pack Go.